Streets and Scholars, Alex Alonso and FG, here to bring you another banger. And we got the General back. It's been a minute.
No doubt, no doubt. What's going on with you?
Oh, man, I'm just over here trying to get it in.
Well, no doubt. First off, man, I want to appreciate Spider Logue, man, for coming through and, and handling this business while I was handling mine, man. Spider Logue, man, if you out there listening, man, I appreciate it, dog.
Oh, yeah, man, he always come in, man, with, he ready to talk about whatever.
Yeah, no, I like the Spider perspective, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, Spider come in, he definitely gonna voice his opinion on some shit, so I appreciate you for coming holding it down.
I gotta give Spider the title of the most willingness to talk about somebody being an informant.
Right. Hey, man, you know what? They need to be put on blast, though. I mean, I don't like to personally just come out and every conversation be about some rats, but at the same time, man, there's so many of them out there, man, but you got to touch on them,
Yeah, and, he's been on T.I.'s head for a long time and a whole bunch of other guys. But I want to start off with a fact check regarding a football player that we talked about. I think that would have been 3 episodes ago. I said he was a rookie in 2020, but that was incorrect.
Talking about Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos.
Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos. He was a rookie before 2020, and that was a mistake I made because I was looking at a website that had his record on there. So no disrespect to his career, because dude has put in at least 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah, he done been in for a while. Like I said, I remember him in Utah, and I wasn't sure the exact date though.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I have it here in my notes what his rookie season was, but it's either 2017 or 2018. So I kind of shaved a couple of years off his career.
Well, you know what? Only thing about that is he been in the league long enough to start getting some bread. So after you're in the league 4 or 5 years, bro, the money start, the minimum is different, hit different, you know what I mean? But I think he, if I'm not mistaken, you say he had a decent contract over there. So hopefully, man, he can continue to do what he's doing, keep balling, his pops looking down on him, you know what I mean? And continue the success. And I hope he get a super, super big one, like take care of the family, make sure everybody's straight. I'm all for that.
Okay, I found it here. He was actually drafted in 2018. So I mentioned he was drafted in 2020, so my bad on that. But he didn't play in the 2022 season because of an ACL. He suffered an injury during practice. Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, that's hard right there.
A season-ending injury in practice.
Yeah.
Now I understand when Iverson said, we talking about practice? Man, but he did sign that 3-year, $30 million deal in 2021 before the injury.
Okay.
I don't know how those football contracts go. Do you still get that money even though you missed a whole season, or they kind of deduct some of that now?
Some of it could be deducted. Some of it is guaranteed. Some of it is incentive based. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think it should still be enough around in there no matter what. He should be, be straight, and not to mention they making investments and stuff like that. So, he should come out cool, man. I'm proud of the kid.
Yeah, some of these football contracts are a little funny because the money is not always guaranteed. Unlike baseball, when you sign a contract, you getting that money.
No doubt.
Regardless.
Yeah, the baseball hit different, yeah.
But yeah, with football, I'm like, wow, if a dude, and football is to me the most brutal sport, so that money should be more guaranteed than any other sport to me.
It should, but at the same time, Alice, we are talking about a lot of money. You know what I mean? The Lawrence Taylors and the Joe Montanas, they didn't make that kind of bread. You know what I mean? So now, I just heard Geno Smith, went and had a couple good seasons with the Seahawks, which I root for Geno Smith. I remember him back in the day of West Virginia, but just signed a $105 million contract. I was happy for him. Of that, I believe 100 is guaranteed or 80 or 90 is guaranteed. That's a lot of money, bro. You know what I mean? So at the end of the, don't get me wrong, you got to pay taxes and all that, but it's still some money that you can walk off with and kick your feet up for the rest of your life if, after your career is over.
And that's crazy money.
Yeah, no doubt.
For playing a sport.
Shit, no doubt, man.
For half the year. When in football, you're only playing it for, 4 months?
Yeah, I mean, you practice for more, but at the same time, talking about 18 games, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, man. We spoke about Shanquella Robinson, the young lady that was beat up by her friends in Mexico and ended up dying as a result of those injuries, and them friends lying to say that she overconsumed alcohol.
Right. Haven't heard nothing, man.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything, but the family had recently spoke out about they want this investigation to move forward, and nothing is happening thus far.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, based on because it's an international situation, but murder is murder at the end of the day. And if it's that easy to go somewhere else and commit a murder and get away with it, I mean, you painting a bad picture because, you know what I mean? People like, well, shit, let me just go kill my friend in Mexico. You know what I mean? Shit, they don't give a damn.
Do you believe that what we saw in that video was kind of planned out, or was that, you think, spur of the moment, heat of passion type thing?
No, I believe it was planned out for the fight, not the murder. So at the end of the day, man, I don't think it'll even get a murder conviction. You know what I mean? Especially not a 1 or 2, maybe a manslaughter. But at the same time, I just believe that people should be held accountable just based on how they did her, bro. You know what I mean? If she was the type that was fighting back and just happened to lose and hit her head on the table, that's a different situation. It was clearly, man, that they just dogged her out, beat her and just kept beating her, man. And she ended up passing away from her injuries. But at the same time, man, they just doing nothing.
I mean, I don't know what they can do. It was a fight. And
was it a fight or was it just a beating?
It was.
I can't call it a fight.
Well,
she didn't swing back. That ain't no fight, bro.
The thing is, we don't know what happened before the camera started rolling. At some point, dude starts recording, and we don't know. What if she took a swing at the chick first, and then she fired back, and then he starts recording while she's firing back? That's what I say as a lawyer. Like, I was
gonna say, you sound great as a defense attorney or something. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I mean, I believe personally, you can look at her action from what we did see. She ain't threw no punch. You know what I mean? And barely could believe she said something slick. I believe they went out there, was gonna whoop her ass. Anyway. For something else. Could have been jealousy, could have been over a dude, could have been over money, could have been over a lot of things. But at the same time, once you slap a person up or do a certain shit and they don't fight back, bro, I just believe that, it should be over after that,
It just didn't seem like the injuries were severe enough that someone was going to die from it.
I mean, not what we saw. That's why you say, maybe she took a swing off camera. No, maybe she got, beat more off camera, and to sustain those kind of injuries.
Well, the mom has been speaking out recently, Shanquella Robinson's mom, about this investigation going forward and how the United States authorities and the Mexican authorities haven't done anything. But man, for it seems like for the last couple months, everyone forgot about this case.
No doubt, and that's what kind of society we living in, unfortunately. Like, if the topic ain't hot, no matter how bad, sad, or severe it is, if it don't stay on the hot seat, it'll get pushed on the back burner because so much shit is always happening. But it's just unfortunate that the family, would have to take this kind of, they don't actually, you know what I mean? I wouldn't recommend it, but like I said, if I was her pops, her brother, y'all don't want to handle it, it's going to get handled, just straight up.
Yeah, if their family's built like that, they don't need the authorities.
No shit.
Right?
I mean, we tried to go that route.
Yeah.
We tried to give y'all an opportunity. Hold on, I'm finna go here and whoop some ass myself. So
No doubt. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about this. I posted a clip of a Mitchy Slick song, Mitchy Slick from San Diego, where the homie from Cross Atlantic had a part in it, Big Tupp.
Big Tupp, yeah, shout out to Big Tupp.
And this had to be, I don't know, maybe you know the year better than me, but we're talking about the song Won't Stop Being the Blood. I don't know if it's part 1 or part 2, because I know Mitchy Slick did a couple of these songs.
Right. I was in the feds when that song was done. And the funny part about it is I heard about the song before I even knew that I had a shout out in it. I even had a picture put up in the video. Homies hitting the yard. Man, y'all heard that song Won't Stop Being the Blood? I'm like, nah, homie. And I don't know how it dawned on me. I think Tup might have wrote me a letter or something like that, and said if I ever get a chance, check that video out. Of course, in there we couldn't just go to YouTube and check out, shit like that. But it was homies coming in. It was like, damn, homie, UFG, huh? No, the homie, you in the video, homie. I'm like, yeah. And that's how I found out about it, So I appreciate it.
Okay, I was going to ask you, you kind of answered my question, you appreciate it, but I was going to ask, and just in general, when you're sitting in the feds and you're in prison and you might be trying to do an appeal or you might be trying to get, work on your case, and then you pop up in a gangster rap video, certain people will feel a certain kind of way, like, dude, I didn't want to be, put on blast on a gang shit. I'm over here doing my time. Do people sometimes feel that way that you've experienced?
Well, you got to think about it and go back. Even before then, back in the day, Second to None got a song called damn, I forget the name of the song, but I'm in that video. It's a lot of things that we did before prison. It's a lot of things we did before we caught our cases. That don't forget my indictment had FG on the front of it. You know what I mean? So these people know who you are. They know exactly what you is. You classified as that no matter what you go in there and tell them to say. When I get to the court, FG from Cross Atlantic, Frank FG Thornton from Cross Atlantic Piru is in the building. They know this. So, and then not to mention though, when you pushing that line, Alex, you ain't shying away from that. You know what I mean? Now you're not going to tell the authorities specifically. Yeah, I'm an active gang member. You're not doing it like that. You know what I mean? But on the flip side though, you never gonna deny the what it is. I mean, that's what it was. So, I didn't take no disrespect or didn't feel no kind of way about it because, I felt that, the hood was being represented, especially at that time. You got to think I'm in prison, full-fledged gang active. So at that time, I was happy the hood was being represented, across the board like that.
Do you remember where you was at when you first?
I was at Victorville.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at Victorville. No, I was at Victorville when I heard that the song was out and that, it was a piece about me in there. You got to think I still probably didn't hear the song till later, maybe Lompoc or something, before I actually heard it, and we didn't have access to those kind of, devices, but the homie did that, Tupp out there on YouTube, or Big Tupp with 2 P's in it. We got songs with the rather, Tupp got a catalog. It just, a lot of people hadn't heard of him. LA and Compton and all that heard of him, but, so y'all check out Big Tupp if y'all get a chance.
And that song is actually kind of confirmation of just your whole story because he's saying you up in the feds because of what another nigga said,
Right.
He didn't really go into details, but we know what that means.
Nah, no doubt. You know what I mean? Like I say, the homies was very hot about that situation. The first time like something like that big kind of happened on the east side, where somebody set you up. So it was a very touchy situation back then, it's still very touchy, and but at the same time, as you seeing today, with the gunners and with all these other dudes, is the shit just ain't the same no more. Streets just ain't the same no more, dudes cutting backroom deals and, dudes that wouldn't have did it back then. And I'm wondering if dudes always cut back, because it's like now dudes are snitching and we getting video of dudes snitching. Did you see the video of dude in the interview room with the police and they got up and left after he was snitching and he checked his pulse and shit, checked his funny shit, man. How's we getting videos on YouTube of dudes sitting in the interrogation room telling?
Well, if we watch the first 48, which came out like, I don't know, years and years and years ago, almost every episode, I would say for every 10 dudes in the first 48 TV show that got into an interrogation room, there might have been one dude that said, I ain't talking to none of y'all.
Right.
So if you look at those numbers, I don't know, this is an unscientific analysis of using first 48, but it's like 90% of them dudes talk and only maybe 10, maybe 15, 20% say, I need my lawyer.
No doubt, but at the same time, it was also a TV show, so I also believe that they might have didn't air some of the guys who refused to talk.
That's true.
As well.
That's true. We don't.
So the number could be skewed a little bit, but at the same time, if you look at how many people going there and willing to talk, it could have been like this all the time. But now with, like you say, social media and paperwork that we know how to kind of find, can't get it all, but we can at least we can figure out how to get the police report. We can figure out how to get the court dockets and the plea agreements and all these things now. It's government websites, they didn't have the internet back then. So, so much shit that's privy to us to find out if a dude a rat. But in today's generation, it's almost like nobody give a fuck if a dude a rat. You know what I mean?
Or I'm also seeing that the bar to prove someone is a rat is so high that you can show them this document, you can hear from this person and hear from this person, and they're still not convinced.
I mean, not to seem like the only way a motherfucker could be basically Some people won't believe him if they just come out and say it themselves. Other than that, no amount of paperwork, no judge's signature on some papers, no nothing is making these dudes, believe that these dudes is really out here telling, or people are taking favors because it's their favorite rapper or it's their homeboy or it's their baby daddy or, they playing favors, dog. You know what I mean? And me, at the end of the day, I'm going to call a spade a spade. So I'm not going to sugarcoat if a motherfucker rat or not. Like I said, I'm not finna sit up here and be like, well, I think he a rat here. But if it come across my table or we talking about a certain subject and I feel that it's truth to that, I ain't going to have no problem speaking on it.
Yeah, so if you listen to that Big Tupp song, do you know which version of Won't Stop Being the Blood it was or what year that song came out? I could tell the people.
You know what? I mean, you Google Mitchy Slick, Won't Stop Being the Blood, is definitely going to come up. I want to say it was on it was a lot of people on now, so that could have been the remix. I'm not 100% sure. I definitely can find out.
No, but if you Google Mitchy Slick Won't Stop Being the Blood, multiple songs come up.
Yeah. So I believe it's the remix.
Because it took me a while to find the Big Tupp one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, go check that out, y'all. Go tap into one of the versions of Won't Stop Being the Blood by Mitchy Slick. And Big Tupp, I think he was the last person on that particular version, right? He's the last rapper on that one.
He's the last rapper, I believe, on there.
And he's basically just confirming FG story way back in, I don't know, I'm going to guess this must have been around 07?
06, 07, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Big Tupp already put this on wax.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
In 06. So go tap in with that. But it made me think of something. Kenny Carter, who was Bunchy Carter's little brother, Bunchy Carter being the Black Panther leader that got killed at UCLA. His little brother just got out, Kenny Carter, after 50 years.
Damn.
So I pulled up a newspaper article on Kenny Carter's case. 1972, he caught it. And they killed the gay preacher. I don't know, 5-6 brothers did this. Because they was on some, this dude be trying to lure us young kids.
Right.
All these guys was teenagers except for one dude. And the oldest dude, who was like 23 or 24, I forget his name, but I got the newspaper clip posted on the Facebook page. He ended up telling. He told on everybody. Dang. And he was the leader. And he ended up not going to prison. Kenny Carter did 50 years. So someone left me a comment saying, hey, this snitching, it ain't new. This go back decades and decades and decades.
They go back decades, man. And the thing about it, like I said, is we just couldn't get the information. But back in the day when you was in the state, all it took for somebody to say you was a rat, say you wasn't right, and you was getting smashed. You know what I mean? And now, like I say, people want you to have, a significant amount of documents, to prove. And, instead of just saying, because I said so. You know what I mean? What happened to that, bro? What happened when a stand-up motherfucker say, because I said so? You know what I mean? I don't need no paperwork. I said so. You know what I mean? So, it's showing the watered downness of what people, feeling about it, and I can see how, like I say, people are picking and choosing who they want to, he a rat, but you hanging with one over here.
Yeah.
A known one. You know what I mean? So I watch all that shit,
No, I pay attention too. And, people criticize me for just having... Hey, if I come off as not embracing rats, informants, snitches, confidential informants, it's because it was embedded in me by my father, my uncle, for fucking years and years and years. I just can't shake it off. And sometimes I don't want to be that person that is against violent crime being solved. But at the same time, it is ingrained in me that you just don't turn your back on people that you grew up with, that are from the same life. You just don't do that. Even if I'm the minority, I'm gonna ride that to the grave, man.
Yeah, but you got to look at the dynamics now. You can go to Instagram and you could just look at, when a certain person posts something about what they did good. Somebody got just got a new vet. See who likes ain't in there. You know what I mean? Because usually most of all the homies like should be in there. They like everything else. They like when you post some jokes. They like when you post some titties. You know what I mean? But when you do something special, so now you got homies, jealous of other homies. Back in the day, Alex, we all didn't have much. You know what I mean? So the jealousy wasn't seen because we all was broke. You know what I mean? So now you got homies on Instagram, flossing big money, and $1,000, $2,000 shoes and stuff like that, and the jealousy is bred. once the jealousy is bred, and this is where the solid start, the glue to the solidness start to unstick. You know what I mean? So now these dudes is like I say, when they get pulled over, they ain't even got to go to jail. Police gonna give them their number. They gonna switch numbers. Text me, woo, woo, woo. You know what I mean? And it's that simple. Back in the day, for a dude to snitch, he had to get all the way to the station, get in the interrogation room. These dudes ain't even touching the substation no more. You know what I mean? So it make it so convenient. They think people not gonna find out, and in a lot of cases, people don't. And so since everybody is suspected of being rat, it's even watering down what actually it is. So nobody standing on nothing. Oh man, they say everybody rat, man. Everybody ain't one. You know what I mean? But there's probably so many people that are, Alex, that they outnumber anything we talking about.
I believe that's true. I believe that, well, the people who are rats and the people who have no courage or no integrity to check a rat outnumber the non-rats and the ones that carry that integrity.
No doubt. Then, like I say, you also have to understand technology. You know what I mean? So say if, I run into a dude at I'm at Benny Hanna's. Now we know Benny Hanna's got cameras in it. You know what I mean? But we also know they got cameras in the parking lot. They also got 100 guests with camera phones in their pockets. Dudes really, even a smart dude or even a gangster, you got to think nowadays. You know what I mean? And do shit different from we used to just do shit out in the wild, in the open, and you never get caught. You know what I mean? Jump out in the middle of the street and start busting. Jump back in your car. You don't even run the light. You wait for the light to change and take off. Never got caught. Shit is just so different now as well. So with all the technology, the phones and shit, these dudes, of course, they want to call you and they want to Instagram and they want to do all this other shit, and the police monitors and shit. So basically what I'm saying is, it's harder to get away than it used to be, which make a lot of these dudes that don't want to go to jail, they gonna roll over like that.
Yeah, well, you got to be smart if you're gonna try to do something and elude the police. It takes a high level of intelligence,
no doubt,
to do that in the 2000s.
It takes a high level of intelligence, bro, and so you better off not doing some of the shit. You know what I mean? If it's something that you can avoid, something that you don't have to do. If you see somebody that physically did something to you or told on you, and you physically see him, I can't tell a man how to act in that situation. You know what I mean? So, but just on some bullshit, y'all gonna learn to cut that out, or you're gonna be in there telling, trying to get out. You know what I mean?
And bank robbery is one of those crimes that usually happens by an individual. He don't have a crew. Most times you just run in and run out. But there's cameras around every bank, parking lot, inside, outside. Mm-hmm. But the bank robber still does it. It don't stop him.
Well, the thing about it is cameras around everybody's homes. You know what I mean? I'm seeing video footage of dude jumping out. It seems like every killing in Compton almost. I ain't gonna say every, but a lot of killing in Compton. Give it a week, somebody gonna have the video.
Yeah.
You like, where the hell motherfuckers is getting this shit from? You got Ring doorbells, you got cameras at the corner, so now after you motherfucker do some shit, you go around the corner, they shot on this street. It's a Jack in the Box on this corner, it's a Wendy's on the next corner. We gonna go get the footage of all the cars at that time going by off that street. You know what I mean? They doing high power investigations, man, and that, between 210 and 215, these are the three cars that passed by at that time. We can hone in on one of them license plates or even got the make, model of the car. Investigation has started, So like I say, they didn't have that kind of technology back in the day, thankfully, you know what I mean? But the thing about it, Alex, is this. Because they do have that kind of technology, I would be a damn fool to do certain shit. You feel what I mean? So why don't the youngsters understand that? They still out there wilding.
Well, I don't do crime not because I don't think I can get away with it. I don't do it because I just don't think it's right in the first place. I
got you. But at the same time, though, say if you somewhere and you at the grocery store, and somebody just, bump into you and then get aggressive and act like you bumped into them, and motherfucker want to fight.
Yeah.
Maybe they on some drugs or something. You got the right to defend yourself. But at the same time, in the midst of defending yourself, I'm insulted that you tried this shit with me, so now I'm going to just try to beat the dog shit out of you. Now then turned into assault because I ain't stopped beating your ass. You know what I mean? So I'm saying now you got the cameras in the grocery store. Back in the day when my mom was taking us to Vons, if they had a camera, they wasn't turning that shit over. Wasn't no witnesses finna say nothing. I mean, it's just different. You don't even have to be doing crime. You know, sometimes you protecting yourself. You know, somebody try to rob you, you whip out your heat and blast them back. You trying to get away from that if you a felon. You know what I mean?
But you'd be in the right for that.
Not if you a felon, they gonna try to knock both of y'all because this is what the judicial system want. They want both of y'all ass. You know what I mean? You know, we know you saved your own life basically. You know what I mean? But no, this is how the system works.
Remember the guy from Philadelphia? We never found out who he was that shot and killed some dude in the liquor store.
Yeah,
because he came in there with a gun and robbing, and he shot that dude. And then me and Spider talked about the undercover cop that was just standing on the sidewalk in Chicago, and the dude tried to grab her gun.
Yeah, that was wild.
And she turned around and said, "I'm gonna kill you." He said, "You're gonna have to kill me."
You're gonna have to kill me.
And then she said, "Watch this." And she fired on him. So, and all of this is caught on camera.
And the sad part about that, let me go to show you what I'm talking about. It was more people talking about how much shit she was talking opposed to she could have got her life took in that ambush. You know, if he could have got that gun, they could have asked for the gun, could have shot her, could have lost her life.
Yeah.
She shot him, but they ain't talking about that. They talking about how much shit she was talking.
Well, she's supposed to be a professional, though.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, though, man, when you get into a heated moment or you get into, let me tell you two things.
Yeah. When
that adrenaline get to flowing, you know what I mean? When she realized what she had to do, this dude that made her shoot him. And she a female, bro. You know they.
Well, I give you that one.
Shit in like that.
But she should have said, maybe because she's a woman and she got emotional, but she should have said, "Call the paramedics. He needs a doctor. He needs medical attention." She's just like, "I told you, I was gonna kill your ass." Like, she was cursing the dead man out.
She was talking shit. I didn't think he was gonna die though. The way she was talking, I thought he might have had some wounds. But shit, he checked out.
Yeah, man. She got him.
You ain't heard nothing back about the guy who shot the guy in the restaurant who came and robbed him in the restaurant. Did he get away too?
So far, So far, they convened a grand jury, or they were going to plan a grand jury to decide if he should be charged because. Here's the crazy thing about that shooting that happened in that was Texas, right?
That was Texas, yeah.
Okay, most people are saying the first 4 shots were perfectly legal.
Right.
It's the next 4 that were overkill.
Right.
But again, my question is, if the first 4 were legit, and he probably died from those first 4, what does it matter? Bullet 5, 6, 7, 8. What was it? 9 or 8?
8.
And I think one of them was kind of like shoulder, head. You really can't see where the bullets land.
They got a lightweight point, but at the same time, that's the sad part about it, man. Is you have to be totally thinking even to justify protecting yourself. That's some bullshit, you know. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, if the first 4, that don't mean the first 4 knocked him down. Though it could have knocked him down, but that don't mean it was over with.
Well, that's what his family will say. We don't know if he died from those first.
Yeah, but do you know if they even identified the gentleman who did the shoot?
I haven't even seen his name being published. Yeah. Nah. So, and I was looking up for the guy in Philly. The guy in Philly ain't nothing happened about him either. He shot and killed the dude in the store. But yeah, man, all this stuff gets captured on camera. It's almost impossible to do a shooting and it not be on camera. If you out in the street somewhere, especially like LA, there's cameras everywhere.
No doubt, but the reason some of these dudes is getting away out here nowadays, Alice, because they truly don't give a fuck. See, the person who give a fuck, them the dudes who getting caught up because they had too many attachments to them. You know, it's just like this. Say if I had a car since I was 16 years old, bro. I always got a car registered to me or my dad. You know what I mean? So when me and the homies jump in the car, if the homies jump out and run or we all jump out and run, guess who it's tracing back to? You know what I mean? So these are the situations. The dude who don't got a card, who don't got a job, who don't do this, all he got is a pistol. You know what I mean? And some dope. You know what I mean? Bro, he can get away. You know, but anybody car he jump in with, say, take me to McDonald's, then something pop off and he jump out and do his thing. Person with the car, person with the license plate, now he's put in a position, you know what I mean? You know, and this is how some of this shit. So the dude in the car is saying this, Alice, hold on, bro. You asked me to take you to McDonald's. I didn't even know you had the heat on. And you jump out and knock some shit down. Even if somebody was tripping on y'all, you jumped out and knocked some shit down out of my car. Police don't know who you are. It's all on my shoulders now. So some of these dudes is get to the station saying, why should I do a life sentence when this dude just asked me, the homie just asked me to take him to McDonald's. Didn't say he had a gun or none of that shit. Now it's a murder and it's on my shoulders. They don't know who the hell he is. You got to make a decision. You know what I mean? The decision started off with, I don't let niggas get in my car. You know what I mean?
At least the law is in your favor now because of the felony murder rule is not imposed like it used to be. They have to prove that you were privy to what this guy was going to do ahead of time.
But how can you prove you got to also prove that you wasn't. And then not to mention that, you might not get the life sentence. That don't mean they still won't give you 15.
Well, that doesn't mean they're not going to try to charge you too.
No doubt.
That's the sad part about it.
What they're going to say is gang members, not a gang member and his cousin, not a gang member and his,
You got to fight for your freedom on that one.
You got to fight
most
for
of the
freedom
time
on that.
Yeah.
So, but my whole point is, this is how the dudes is getting away that's really putting the work in, because a lot of them don't got shit to lose. You know what I mean? A lot of them don't got shit to, you know what I mean, as far as they set up, you know what I mean? Ain't shit in their name, ain't, you know what I mean? So it's hard to, so that's my point.
Now, earlier you mentioned that you was also mentioned in a song by Second to None. Do you remember what year that was?
That was Didn't Mean to Turn You On.
Okay, Didn't Mean to Turn You On, 1994.
Yeah. I was shooting dice in that video. As a matter of fact, the homegirl, what made me even think of it, the homegirl had posted the video not too long ago, a piece of it. And I hit her, I said, that's me shooting dice right there in the green shirt, right? She was like, hell no. I was like, shit, man, well, I've been fucking with the homies a long time. KK and D, man, when they came out with DJ Quick, man, they was hot. That sound was hot.
So is KK and Gangsta D from the east side of Compton?
They from that's the west side, like the Fruitown, Treetop. They off that side.
Okay, so this one website says they're affiliated with Elm.
Yeah, D from Am. They both might be from Am, but you gotta understand, Quick was out of trees.
Yeah.
So when I met them, they was under Quick. So that video and all that was over there on the west side, over there in Cedar Block. You know what I mean, Treetop. But you know what? You're absolutely right.
So originally they're from the east side.
They're from the east side, really. Yeah.
All right, so we can tap in. We can pull that video up and check you out in that 1994. Damn, what's that? 20, almost 30 years ago, actually, huh?
No doubt. Green shirt, shooting dice. And the cold, funny part about that video is, they like, well, look, we gonna shoot this scene. Y'all gonna be shooting dice, blah, blah, blah. So while they shooting the video, sometimes you take, run it again. I really got the dice game kicked off. We really shooting dice like it,
It's
fuck
a real
the video.
game.
Yeah. So if you look on the video, you can see I'm focused on my bread, focused on, shooting them dice, man, and shit. But it was a cool experience, and I still fuck with KK. I just talked to KK not too long ago. He got some new music out. So Second to None do have some new music out. Tap in with them and check that out, man.
Damn, Second to None. I mean, they 30 years in the game.
Shit, man, no doubt, man. But they still pumping out some cool. Quick used to have them beat. Quick had the sound. Quick had the sound probably until maybe Warren G and them came with the G-Funk era music. But man, they had them sounds, man. They had them sounds coming up back then.
Do you remember who you were shooting dice with in that video?
Shit, I don't know, man.
And where they were from?
I knew they was some cedars, some elms, and some trees, but I can't say for what particular homies they was for sure.
Okay, damn, that's some classic.
I'm gonna have to call KK, man, and ask him who was in that video, man. That was a long time ago, man.
I'm definitely gonna tap in at that video. Anybody can go on YouTube and find it. I Didn't Mean to Turn You On. That's 1994, Second to None by Gangsta D and KK. So man, you're mentioned in the Mitchy Slick. You were in this video. Do you ever think like, if I didn't get sidetracked on some other stuff and then have to sit down for this amount of time, like all the things and all the ideas and all the plans that you could have put into motion, losing almost a decade?
Well, I had the nightclub business pretty going well for me, Alex. You know what I mean? I had got out the game and was doing the nightclub thing, like I had mentioned. And when I had the Red Velvet, Terry Carter and Wacko and Chip and them, they had Short Chop, as an artist back then on Heavyweight.
I remember Short Chop,
Terry Carter had Heavyweight Records. And, so the homies would, come through with artists, and I was really cutting my teeth into the nightclub business. I really believe, Alex, had I not have left, I really could have did something bigger in it, and been successful, no doubt. I was already making the money, you know what I mean? I just needed to, keep pushing,
What's crazy is I've been to that club on Wilshire, off of Wilshire, I think Westmoreland.
Yeah, the Monte Cristo.
The Monte Cristo. I went there one night. I was like, damn, this club is off the chain. I remember Jim Brown was in there one night. Also, Urkel, I forget his real name. I had a couple too many drinks that night, and I went up to Urkel and started, talking his Urkel stuff, and I could tell he was annoyed.
Yeah.
So Urkel, if you tapped in, man, I apologize. We were at the Monte Cristo, and I was like, man, it's a hell of a club. I remember, like, you had to kind of go upstairs.
Yeah. You can't be too drunk coming down. You'll fall down. But yeah, we had a good time at the Monte Cristo, man, and so I had a few artists come up there. Bobby Valentino came up there and performed for me one night. And, I had a good thing going, Alex, and that's a part of it, man, that, when you go do that time, because a motherfucker, no matter how you go do it, I think it hurt more than when a motherfucker, set you up and, knock you down. But you lose not only time in your life, you lose opportunities.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? Because the opportunities and the shit I had lined up at that moment could have been my $1 million opportunities, could have got me over to hump to where, you know what I mean? Like I say, I could have secured a lot of money for the family and kids and, things of that nature. And when shit like that happens, it hurt even more, bro. And when I got locked up, I had my wife going up there working the door. I had the homie bus stop and them going up there to try to make sure shit was kind of running straight. But without the general, homie, it just wasn't going to run like it needed to run. Because when you're dealing with a nightclub in L.A., man, don't forget, man, you dealing with, I never forget the homie asked me, could he do a repass up there? He said, if I'm going to do it in the daytime, I said, look, bro, I got the club later on tonight. So I got to have the family gone before I start having the customers come in. You know what I mean? Because that's how, I got to get my money. He's from Harlem 30s. And they had the repass up there, man, and they was up there pretty much like, they was Harlem 30s, huh? Banged out. They lost a loved one, And the time was coming for the club to open, and it's hard to put people aunties and shit out, and you know what I mean? I'm like, homie, they got the homie on the T-shirts, you know what I mean? And I kind of was trying to run a pretty strict program with the dress code, you know what I mean? And it's things of that nature, that gang members are coming up there drunk and having a party, and you know what I mean? I never forget some dude jumped out. I mean, we got into a couple fights at, it's a hard thing to do in L.A., you know what I mean? Because you dealing with L.A., gangsters, killers, drug dealers, robbers, bank robbers, everybody want to get their money however they get it, then come to the nightclub and have a good time. But outside of that, though, bro, I saw a lot of smiles on people's faces. I made money, man, and I felt that I was given a situation where people can come and let their hair down, you know what I mean? But I really believe if I wouldn't have left, Alex, I could have owned one right now, let other people rent out nights, get the bar money, been successful, bro.
Hey, man, that bar money is crazy. I just told myself the other day, I'm never buying a drink in a bar again because I paid $20 for a drink.
Stop myself. Yeah.
It's not that, like, I don't mind spending a little bit of money and having a good time, but I just feel like this is not worth a $20 a drink.
Well, you know me, I drink. So in order for me to get drunk, shit, I'm going to be out of $200. You know what I mean? So I feel you on that.
$20 for a drink. But I just pulled up a picture of the video for those who are listening to the podcast, and I paused the video at the point where you can see FG with the green shirt on the ground. It looks like he's got the money from the dice game. And there's at least 10 people in this picture here.
No doubt, all homies.
Yeah. What do you remember about that?
I remember dude didn't give me my $10, it was gonna be a problem. But now it was all homies. It was funny, like I say, how it happened. Like I say, I fuck with the homies all, the Bompton homies, period, hands down. And I remember, like I said, I just pulled up and the homies was finna get cracking. They like, F, come on, homie, you fucking with us? Hell yeah, come on, let's roll. And it just kicked off just that fast, you know what I mean? And just for me pulling up and like I say, me and KK, like I say, me and KK is super tight, and but yeah, it was a good day that day.
I'm surprised that this is 1994 and not everybody is flamed up. Was that discussed before? Like, deliberately don't come flamed up for this video? Because these is all Pirus right here,
You
right?
know what? I stumbled across the video. Like I said, I had just pulled up. You know, somebody hit my phone and said, "Hey man, where you at?" I said, "I'm coming down to Crayons." And I remember them brick phones and shit back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, I'm coming down to Crayons, man, and hey, pull up. You know, and I pulled up, and they had already had everything rocking and rolling. You know, and I just literally jumped out the car, jumped in the video, and they started shooting. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So you got to see this. Did they air this on like what did we
It
have
was
back
MTV.
then? MTV?
Yeah, that shit was on MTV and VH1 and MTV back then.
I know we used to have the video box thing where you call in and you tell them to play a video off of like on cable and they'll play all the rap videos. Yeah, I
But
forgot.
I know because these dudes was big back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 94, Second and None. They was huge. Like I say, they got a lot of songs with DJ Quick. You know what I mean? They was doing their shit.
No, I definitely remember them back in the early '90s. All right, man. I want to ask you about this because you got a lot of experience on this question. But unfortunately, we heard that Lil Doc from the Six Pack East Coast Crip, who helped do the truce between the Florences and the East Coasters back in 2019. I heard he got stabbed up in Victorville prison.
I heard that, but I can't confirm.
Yeah.
You know, I can't confirm, and I did hear that. But to be honest with you, in Victorville, I'm not surprised at anybody getting stabbed there. You know, like I said, I can't confirm that, you know, Doc got stabbed there, but it's not surprising at all if it did happen. You know, Victorville rocking and rolling, you know, and you a stabber. You one day you gonna get stabbed. You know, that's just how the shit go. You know, so like I say, it's rocking, bro. It's rocking.
Yeah, we spoke about Victorville on a previous episode about those essays that eventually took their deal 10 years after the fact when they stomped to death one of their homies, which thinking about that conversation we had, I definitely believe they were just trying to DP the dude. And
no doubt.
it was DP that went a little too far.
Yeah, no, I got more intel on that, you know what I mean? And like I said, I talked to some dudes that was actually there, you know, and that's definitely how it went, you know.
But what would you have to do? Like, I mean, we know that you're going to get beat in prison. There's fights in prison. You can die in prison. But it's not something that happens every day. It's just spontaneous. You just don't know it's going to go down. But for someone to decide, for someone that's just going to get stabbed, is there like a protocol? Like, do people got to have the meeting? Do they got to prove it? I mean, this is a solid brother that's hitting the yard, if it's true, and somebody wants to get at him. How does that go down?
Well, you know, I mean, you know, man is man, you know, so at the end of the day, it can go down in so many different variations because like this, you know, say if we on the yard and somebody I personally don't feel, you know, pull up. Say if somebody shot me on the street or shot at me on the street or shot one of my homies on the street and I'm feeling to the point to where I'm finna handle this. I'm not finna ask nobody permission. I'm gonna go handle it. Permission probably gonna come when it's another race, when it's another gang of, you know, that kind of, you know, a whole nother race, you know, where you could start something so much where by you stabbing somebody else could get killed because of your actions, you know. But if somebody from motherfucking Piru say pulled up, you know, that I was super beefing with to that point to where I know if I don't stab them, they gonna stab me, then that could be an isolated incident. You know what I mean? You know, because, okay, that's Piru business. You know, everybody not gonna get into that, you know. I don't know the situation that happened in Victorville, but, I mean, it could be over anything, Alan. You piss off the wrong dude. If he decide to stab you, that's on him. And he'll ride with it. He'll rock with it. He'll take the consequences of whatever gonna come, you know. So that's why it's just that easy, you know.
So now all the conflict that gets to the level of a stabbing, it's usually in-house, meaning blood on blood, Piru on Piru, Crip on Crip, Mexican, white. It doesn't cross racial lines. Like, how often will a Crip stab a blood in a place like Victorville?
That could happen any day, just based on, because as a man, you know, if he was disrespected right there, he gonna handle his business right there. You know, now when the homies get the word back to why the homie got stabbed, you know, hey man, he spit on the dude from, you know, the Crip dude, you know what I mean? Motherfucker gonna be like, hey, you know, he spit on me, I'm gonna stab you too. So you gotta think about that part too. You also gotta think about when something happened, what would you would have did in that situation? You know what I mean? And So that's just how it works. You know what I mean? I know when he was at Victorville one time, the Southsider called the homie out his name. Homie fired on him. You know what I mean? Usually you supposed to come to the homie like, I'm not going to get nobody. You know what I mean? He disrespected me right here. You know what I mean? Nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? They understood, you know. So at the end of the day, sometimes that's just how. Now, say if the dude that got fired on wanted to come back himself and try to blast the homie, you know what I mean? Got to isolate a situation there that's going to escalate into some bigger shit. But if he did stab the homie, if he got caught doing it, okay, boom, now he in the hole. You know what I mean? Mexicans probably be like, listen, man, he ain't coming back to this yard. You know, or the police might not let him back to that yard anyway, so it'd be hard for the homie to get his man. It was an isolated incident, you know, depending on how people want to take it or what they want to do after that is something different. But black on black, you know, it could be a whole lot of a whole lot of situations, but a lot of times dudes getting stabbed because they ain't right. That's probably one of the biggest. Your paperwork ain't right. That's one of the biggest.
Okay. Now, if Lil Doc Thong got stabbed, if it's true, you know, he's actually disabled. He got shot. He walks with a limp, and he's partially paralyzed on one side.
That, yeah.
None of that matters, huh? I mean, you see a guy that's defenseless, basically. He can't scrap, fight, squab like he used to. So do people take in consideration, this is a defenseless brother, but he's paid his dues, and he's a down brother from his area, from his section, but he's disabled.
Yeah, but you ain't paid your dues on that yard. You know, see, that yard is a whole different beast. You don't give a fuck what you did before you got here. Everybody got bodies, you know, you're real gangsters, you know, but amongst them, you know, you ain't did nothing ain't nobody else did. Yeah, you got a name and you might have brokered some deals, you might have did some gangster shit, but so did the homies. You know, they did the same shit, you know what I mean? You don't get stabbed for nothing. You know, most of the time, Alex, you don't get stabbed for nothing. You know, so, you know, I don't have no dynamics on, you know, but something had to be done. He had to do something, had to disrespect somebody, something had to go down to the point to, or somebody could have got on his, you know, because of his name, because he's, you know, he got a legendary name basically, you know what I mean? Somebody probably wanted to test that, you know what I mean? Well, what's so gangster about this fool? You know, which is unfortunate, you know, which would be, you know, dude approving G, you know, but that's the nature of the beast though, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. So when you get stabbed like that at a place like Victorville, is there an on-site hospital doctor, or do they take you off of the premises?
Depending on how bad the wound is, because you got to think every time you get stabbed, it's not even a life-threatening injury based on some of the knives that you can't even get through the metal detector. Some of them just pokers. Some of them are just to poke you with, you know, get you up off of them and shit like that. But you know, go to the unit. You know what I mean? Okay, I can get away with not getting some stitches, put some Vaseline on it, and it, you know, to keep the blood from flowing and it'll heal. If you get hit with a bone crusher, yeah, they're gonna shoot you to an outside hospital and, you know, and try to get you right over there.
Now, if you do get hit and you get treated and everything's fine, can you come back to that yard? To the same yard, even if you want to, or will the BOP say, we're sending you somewhere else?
Sometimes the BOP gonna get you up out of there. You know what I mean? They gonna send you to another situation which you want to go back. Like, hold on. Hold on. You know what I mean? And nah, bro, we gonna get you up out of here.
Because if you're a down brother, you saying, no, send me right back to that yard,
yeah,
right?
Let me go back outside, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. It ain't nothing.
But that you must get some hell of a respect if you get stabbed on a yard and you saying, send me right back to the same yard because I'm going to handle my business.
Well, you got to understand that some dudes get sent back to the yard because they don't tell who stabbed them. You know, they don't, you know what I mean? They, you know, and if they telling the BOP, no, ain't nothing wrong. You know what I mean? I was playing something and I fell on the thing and a rock cut my arm. You know what I mean? You know, depending on what you tell them, they might hold you for a minute. But then when they get out there and do their little investigation, because that's what SIS do, yeah, and they gonna go, you know, check the temperature, see what's going on, and see what's happening, and you know, go get at the shot caller to see if this dude can come back to the yard. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers say let him back out there. They gonna let him back out there because the BOP is not transporting people like they used to. Dudes used to can go check in. I can't live on this yard. I've been threatened with my life. BOP is sending you to another institution. It costs so much to do this. The BOP starts saying, nah, if he ain't coming in with busted eye, busted head, we ain't sending him nowhere. He going back out on that yard. You feel what I mean?
Yeah.
So dudes stop playing. But you dudes used to do it just to get a transfer. they don't do that no more. You know what I mean? But at the same time, depending on how bad the wound was, you know, how bad he got stabbed, you know, all stabbings ain't. Sometimes, you know, it's a cut. You know, 10 stitches and you right back the same day. You know, and that's how it be sometimes.
So if you get stabbed for just a personal reason or disagreement, I'm assuming you could probably go back to the yard. But if you get stabbed because your paperwork was bad, then you probably can never come back.
Well, that's the thing about it. Say if you did get put back on the yard just based on, for whatever reason, you didn't convince them that it's okay to go back out there. You got to go handle your business. So you ain't going to be out there long anyway. In your mindset, I'm finna go handle my business. This dude done stabbed me, and that's with anything. This dude done stabbed me. This dude done hit me with a lock and a sock behind my head, knocked me out. You know what I mean? No, I got to get back out there. I got to go handle my business. So you don't plan on being there anyway, because you finna go stab the shit out of him back or whatever you can to him. So, you know, being on that yard or staying on that yard that don't matter. Getting your man is what matters.
So what's it like when the SIS, and I'm assuming this is like the gang investigators of the prison,
No doubt,
they come on the yard to talk to the inmates? What's that dynamic like, where you basically have the, I guess the police, for lack of a better word, the SIS, trying to find out what's going on in the yard and trying to get that information from the inmates?
It's the damn near like on the street, the police coming to talk to you. But sometimes it could be so real that you know. I never forget, I had it was a homeboy from what was this dude from? I think he was from up north somewhere, and he was a blood. We was at Victorville, you know. He did some sucker shit, and I tell the little homies from Blackstone, y'all get on that nigga, you know what I mean? And so he ended up checking in, you know. So SIS, I'm in the barbershop. SIS come up to me and say, hey Thornton, I'm gonna say, and they say, man, just say his name was Thomas. Hey, Thomas told us that you say he had to check in. You know, we trying to see if he can come back to the yard. You know what I mean? I said, he told you I said he had to check in? They like, yeah. I said, well, shit, you already know the answer. You know what I mean? Because if he said I said that, you done went in there and told. You know what I mean? And what they did was they put a separate T on me and dude to where me and dude would never be in the same institution ever again. But if I was to bump into him, homie, now you got to get smashed, super smashed, because you went in there and told. So
how do you know he really told, though?
He probably, because how would you?
What if the SIS has a assumption that you did something to him? He's denying it to SIS, but they know that you pressed the line on him, so they're going to come at you and say, yeah, he told us that you said X, Y, Z.
Because I got the physical separate T's. And when you get the separate T's, it show you the statement that another inmate made. You know what I mean? So if it wasn't a separate T's involved, you know what I mean, I'd have told him, shit, do what y'all want to do. You know what I mean? But because I got the separate T's that stated that he stated this, you know what I mean? They not gonna just type up some shit he stated, and it's in my file forever. Every prison I go to, all my case managers see, okay, you got 4 separate T's. You know what I mean? What was going on with that? You know, and shit, I don't know. You know, but if you got, most of the time is for checking motherfuckers in, or you getting into it with another inmate, or like you say, if one inmate, you know, somebody stabbed somebody, them two will never be on the same yard again.
Now, does the SIS ever try to pit people against each other? Because, you know, divide and conquer. Let me get in FG's head real quick and say a few things about this guy, and let me go to this guy and say a few things about FG, and kind of, you know, they playing chess.
Well, you got to realize, though, that a safe yard is safe for them, though. You know what I mean? You know, they not, you know, to start some shit, that ain't something where, you know, they already outnumbered, they making their job harder. You know what I mean? In order to do, you know, do certain shit. But let me tell you what I did hate when they did. You know, they'll motherfucker come get you out to call you over to the lieutenant's office at shit 9 o'clock at night. I'm telling the homie, come to the lieutenant office with me, or whoever they do that to, we advise them to take somebody with them. Don't go up there talking to them people by yourself. Because it's almost like you going to the police station and talking to the police. You know, some situations is more or less like, though, this. A food strike, we do a lay down on the food. You know, we don't go to child. You know, we do a food strike, or we do something that we trying to get for us. And they get to calling a bunch of dudes out. You know, some dudes going to say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Some of us going to say, nah, this is what we need. We need the yard to be open an hour later. We need the library to be open an hour later. Some of us are going to be vocal about what we need in the prison for the for the inmates. So in that situation, that ain't no, I mean, you talking to them, but at the same time, you know, and you telling them this in front of everybody, the homies behind you and everything. No, homie, this what we need. You know what I mean? This bullshit food y'all feeding us and shit, man. Well, you know what I mean? You have to sometimes go against the administration and get what you need for the inmates, you know. So in those type of situations and shit, but it's been known like this as well. You know, when I go to the hole, the homies finna go get it. SI. Hey man, let the homie out. You know what I mean? Fuck y'all got him in there for.
And they'll listen?
Hell yeah, they be like, look, we got him under investigation. Look, man, on some instances, man, let the homie out. Like damn near like it's gonna be a problem. If I ain't did nothing wrong, cause sometimes they'll lock your ass up just for nothing, just to, cause something happened on the compound, they'll just get to pulling motherfuckers and lock them up. Man, the homie's gonna go, hey man, let the homie out. You know what I mean? You know, like on some serious shit, let the homie out. You know, he'll be out in a minute. All right. You know, and the homies be like, don't fuck with nothing in this cell. Don't, you know, and they'll push a line like that. But at the same time, you really got dudes that still telling that to motherfuckers too, because these people be knowing too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, their job is like, I'm sure that, what does the I stand for? Intelligence?
SIS stands for, I knew it like the back of my hand, man. It was, investigative.
It's either intelligence or investigation. Yeah. So basically their job is to just get as much information as they possibly can.
Oh, no doubt.
And, you know, let's see. I was just trying to look up SIS. Because what do they call it in the prison, in the CDC, in the California prison, they call it the IGI.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they got something.
I don't remember what they called it back in the state.
It's IGI, Institutional Gang Investigators, the IGI.
Yeah, that's basically what SIS is.
Yeah. So that's an interesting dynamic between the SIS, who's there trying to investigate what's going on in the yard, and the actual inmates trying to impede their progress and the information that they're trying to acquire. But let me see here.
Hey, so but at the same time, let me see.
They have, every time I see SIS here, they don't have it defined.
Special Investigative Services.
Say it again?
Special Investigative Services. That's what it is. Each prison has its own SIS lieutenant, but they be having 2 or 3 SIS lieutenants.
I mean, it says here that each prison has its own SIS lieutenant who acts as a kind of FBI agent or detective within the prison.
No doubt. No doubt. I remember one time I was in the barbershop in Victorville and shit. I got some weed in my sock, right? So I'm getting my hair cut and shit. And them motherfuckers pull it right up in the barbershop. Hey, Thornton, they lieutenant's office now. I'm like, fuck, because if they take you to the hole, they gonna strip search you and shit like that. So I motherfucking walk out the barbershop. I'm like, oh, I left my comb, ran back up in there real fast and threw that shit on the thing. The homie put his foot on it, the barber, you know what I mean? I escaped out of the hair of my chin of that motherfucker.
And you were trying to avoid getting sent to the hole for that?
No, I didn't know what the fuck they want. See, that's the thing about it. They'll call you for certain people for all kind of shit. You know what I mean? You know, I was definitely a factor at Victorville. You know, so when they get to calling certain dudes, you know, they'll call a motherfucker. I'm gonna tell you the same thing every time I go. I don't know. I don't have no idea. A lot of times they not calling to ask you something. They calling to tell you something. You know what I mean? Because they already know what the fuck is going on. You know, I remember the motherfucking captain at Victorville called us in there one day, and he called about 3 Crips. He called me and he called the Indians. He called a shot caller from like damn near every little thing. You know, representatives from every, you know. That motherfucker said that if we didn't, they said somebody was fucking up, and if we didn't stop them, they was gonna shut the yard down. You know, they said with the Bloods and the Crips, they say your homeboys is running up debts on the gambling table. Y'all don't get them debts paid, we gonna motherfucker shut the yard down. We walked out that motherfucker laughing. You know, shut this motherfucker down then. You know, man, the fuck I look like going to another man about what the fuck he got going. And that's what kind of shit they'll do. You know what I mean? You know. Some people got a lot of shit going. They got their grandmama coming to visit who on dialysis, who never visited them before. She gonna make this one trip. People got shit going. in their life. They see their kids on the weekends. They do this or that. So dudes don't want the yard shut down. But at the same time, you know, bro, if we want to do something, we gonna do it on our motherfucking call, not on y'all motherfucking call. You know what I mean?
Now, have you ever experienced someone that was so mad at you in prison that they wanted to stab you or get a word like this guy's he's mad at you, FG. He might make a move on you.
Well, no, I've been in a couple situations. You know what I mean? And I ain't no stranger to danger. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers know how I get down. You know what I mean? I could pull off my shirt right now. You know what I mean? And I done been in some action, no motherfucking doubt. You know what I mean? And sometimes you could be the aggressor and motherfuckers still, you know, come up with a situation. You know what I mean? I never been motherfucking, you know, butchered or nothing like that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like I said, I've been on the front line of a lot of shit. You know, and shit happen. You get back to the unit or the dorm. Damn, is that a little blood right there? I don't know, homie. Check me out. You know what I mean? And you done got poked or something, you know, and that's just how I go. That's how I know about the Vaseline, because I didn't know nothing about that shit. You know what I mean? I'm like, fuck the homie, like, I got you. You know what I mean? What the fuck you gonna do? Shit, motherfucker whip up some of this and whip up some of that. You know what I mean? And shit get cracking and you never get caught. You know, you never get pulled up on. You know, shit went down like it went down. Somebody took some L, somebody, you know, and that's how shit go, you know?
Have you ever looked back at one of them situations and said, yeah, I fucked up. I had that coming.
No. You know, not me. Nope. You know what I mean? Because I ain't never been in a situation where somebody, like you said, let me go back to the original question. No, wasn't nobody mad at me. You know what I mean? My whole thing was always riding for the homies, front line and for the homies. You know, being in the front when the homies who had the situation should have been in the motherfucker front. It took me a long time, Alex, to understand that. How did the motherfucker make it all the way back to the unit to get you? You know what I mean? You know, why wasn't no blood spilled or no fights or no nothing when it happened? And it took a homeboy to tell me that. How a motherfucker come get you to go back and do something? You know what I mean? And I wasn't looking at it like that. You know what I mean? And it took me a couple years before I started to realize, you know, and to one of my homeboys from Bunchy Carter, he told me, he said, man, FG said, let me holler. He said, check it out, homie. And I thought he was being insulted. I thought he was insulting me at first, but he said, check this out, homie. Don't let a motherfucker manipulate your courage, homie. Don't let these niggas manipulate your courage. You know what I mean? I was like, what you mean by that, homie? I'm on the offensive and shit, but when I went and sit down and that's when he said, how did a motherfucker get back to the unit to come get you? How did you get in that situation when it happened 2 hours ago? You know what I mean? Or an hour ago. You know what I mean? So it took me a while to learn that.
He skedaddled. He skedaddled up out of there, right?
Or turned some shit down.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Till like you went and got the homies, but when in fact, man, you both take all where you get mad at, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know about, so like I said, so many various situations, man, that motherfucker can, you know, be in a situation that they saying Doc was in. I don't know none of the details. I don't even know if it's true, but, you know, like I said, that shit is highly possible though.
Well, I'm gonna try to get an update on that in the next episode. And lastly, before we leave here, man, Eric Holder got sentenced to 60 years to life. I guess if he came to Victorville to do his time, that's Crip business. What do you think would happen to Eric Holder at Victorville if he had to do his time in a place that's that active?
Well, shit, I mean, you know, I'm sure he going to the state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They got places like that. You still got Pelican Bay. You still got New Folsom. You still got some of them places that's rocking. You know what I mean? And I mean, dudes is active. But in a similar situation, it all depends on what he hit the yard and say. You know, nigga called me a rat. You know what I mean? I mean, and if he not one, shit. I mean, you know, what is you gonna say? Because people was only mad. Don't forget, we talked about this earlier. People only stay mad so long before they start to be like, oh, you know what, man, that ain't want business. Now, if he run into some dudes that Nip was taking care of,
Ooh.
you know what I mean, or some shit like that,
Yeah.
or something really is fucked up about his jacket, they gonna holler at him. No motherfucking doubt. But on the real, if it's on certain shit, you know, Nip, you not exempt from the street life if you in the streets, you know, and if you call dude something he wasn't, dude can justify that. Because a motherfucker called me a rat, shit, I don't give a fuck who you is. I'm the same way. I don't give a fuck who you is. Now, I think it's some more underlying currents though in that whole situation, but I'm just saying that can easily go that way.
Now, I could understand if he was taking care of some people, Nipsey, in prison. I don't think those people, it would even matter. Eric Holder's going to be.
He gonna get his ass handed to. No doubt. You know what I mean?
But how much do you think Nipsey Hussle's fandom, his his celebrity, will have an impact on Eric Holder being in prison? Will people be mad at him because he was a famous rapper? Is that enough for somebody on a level 4 to make a move on someone like Eric?
I would believe like this. I would say it like this. I believe somebody will move based on the potential that Nipsey had for the 60s in itself, and after that, the Crips in itself as a car. This dude could have went on and made $100 million, homie, and Nip was the kind of dude that was going to put money back into the Crips' pockets. You know what I mean? Probably would have helped some homies too. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Musically.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And when you do something like that, or you get that big, and you start reaching out and dudes is making hit records, one record make a dude $1 million. So if he on a song with Tupp, he let Tupp get on the song with him, you know what I mean? And that one song Tupp do go on and make Tupp a couple $1 million because it's just that hot. He didn't help the Power Rules, basically. You feel me? So I think with that being said like that, somebody gonna say, bro, we had the potential for, the Crip car, homie, to be dynamic. You know what I mean? And it's almost like how sometime I be mad at Suge about his shit. Bro, how motherfucker, the Power Rules could be up in so many situations with what you had to offer. Not saying that you owe nobody none of your money, but you could have put certain people in positions, you know what I mean, to be better. And I always tell, Suge's still around, so he's still around to listen to this shit. If he would have fucked with me in a certain way, he wouldn't have got let down in no way. You know what I mean? Because that's how solid the motherfucker was, and I was already on my own shit. You know what I mean? So same thing. And so when I look at Suge, like, damn, bro, you know what I mean? The Power Rules could just be to one can help the next one. Each one help one. You know what I mean? And that's how I think they gonna look at the situation with Nip. Like, bro, you fucked up something that could have been great with us. So you gotta, we gonna holler at you.
Well, it doesn't seem like there's any way that the CDC is just going to put Eric Holder in the lion's den. That just you just basically going you just sentence him to 60 years to life so he can get killed in prison as soon as he hits the yard. I see that they're going to be responsible for keeping him alive.
True, but he not the first dude who motherfucking got to prison and got his head knocked in. And, he won't be the last. You're not talking about a smaller hood per se.
But a high profile case though, like Charles Manson, nothing ever happened to Charles Manson because they knew, this dude is somebody gonna kill this dude in prison because he's just crazy.
No doubt, but they kept him locked up a lot too. You know what I mean? When you doing that kind of time, man, he ain't gonna want to be locked up like that. Then you got these sensitive need yards, man. They'll find somewhere to put him. It still got to be high security though. They're not gonna risk the security just to make him comfortable. You know what I mean? You killed the man at the end of the day. So they ain't gonna just babysit you. It's too many people in prison for them to babysit anybody. This is how dudes is getting got. You know what I mean? It could be a new officer coming in. They don't give a fuck who you is. You a nigga to him. You know what I mean? Let you get up in there and Tehachapi with the big white boys and shit. They don't give a fuck who you is. You was man enough to do the crime. Get your ass out there on that 4 yard. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting to see because he be hitting the yard in a minute.
Yeah, and lastly, I felt like 60 years it was a little too much. It's a singular murder. This happens it happens at least 200 or 300 times a year, and most people don't get sentenced to 60 years to life for killing one person in the state of California. I felt like Nip's celebrity and just the high profile nature of this made the judge give him a more extreme sentence. And I did the math on this. Dude ain't going to be eligible for parole until 2070. We're going to be damn near 100 years old when this guy gets to see the light of day again.
No doubt, but that's usually what happens when you get a life sentence, for one. For two, I believe that for the high profile nature of this case, he got all that time. But don't forget, he did shoot 2 other people. Whether it's by default or not, he did injure 2 other people. So I do believe that sometimes with these high power cases, with these cases with this super publicity, they know everybody was looking at this case. They wanted to make an example and show, because every case, like you say, is not on TV.
Yeah.
So they wanted to show these dudes, hey, listen, you come up in here with that, this is what you gonna get. Like kind of like a deterrence type shit, because he could say if he go back and appeal some of his sentence, you know what I mean? They say, okay, well, we'll knock off 25, because the way it was set up, I think he got 25 for this, 25 for that, and something for.
He got 25 for the murder and 25 for the gun.
Right. So
that's 50 right off top.
Right.
And the judge decided to run those consecutively.
Right. So if you double back and, you know, you get something knocked off, 15 knocked off for the gun, you know, now you're down to, you know, 30 with an L. You know, when you got them L's, I just don't see them coming up off of them, regardless if it's 25 or 60.
All right, man. Let the people know where they can find you, man. I know you, you haven't been as active as you've been before, but I know you got some good shit coming.
No doubt, bro. Tap in with FG Unleashed on YouTube. You know, come follow me on Instagram, FGeneral1 on the gram. You know.
And I'm gonna start dropping more content. February was a slow month for me, just because I was just tied into a whole lot of family stuff. But I'm gonna pick up the pace. Street TV on YouTube, Alex Alonso 101. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Leave us a message and DM there. And also, if you're listening to us on Apple, just leave us a rating and review, and leave some comments and questions, and we'll do an episode and answer some of those questions. And we talked about the Big Tupp and Won't Stop Being the Blood. That was actually inspired by one of our listeners that left us a message. So thanks for tapping in for another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.